Okay, it worked the first time. That time. Awesome. I'm just going to go share this on Facebook. Looks like the notification went through. Sorry for that. Excuse me today. I'm hoping I don't have any coughing fits. There's been something going around our church and around the world, actually. And we all have it. So we've been hacking away. Everyone's hacking away in my house. So I really hope I don't have any times where I need to cough during the show, but we'll see. I have my hot tea here. I've been drinking hot tea all day while teaching. So, all right. We'll see how that works. Hello, Shara. Good to see you. Okay. So today, continuing on in our theme of marriage of the month of January, I wanted to talk about finding the love of your life, building a good foundation, and staying married. So, obviously, I have to put my disclaimers out there. The methods that I'm going to be talking about in this are ones that my husband and I have done. They are ones that we have seen other people, other Christians, mainly in the Baptist world, do, and they've had very good outcomes. So they're going to apply. The first part is going to apply to maybe you single girls out there, or ones in your 20s, 30s that haven't been able to get married yet, but are looking to get married and you really want a spouse. For the girl, it's a little bit harder because we are the ones being pursued, right? We are not pursuers in most cases. So, for us, it's going to be a little bit more tough when it comes to the situation. A lot of it is just waiting on the Lord and praying that He brings the right man into our life. But I do believe you can be in a good place in your life for that to happen. And, just staying in church and staying faithful. There's also nothing wrong with, just finding like minded churches to visit, maybe. And there might be a single guy there that would take an interest in you. So that's another thing that you can do as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Hey, Nicole, nice to see you. So, yeah, sure. I feel like in the winter, we're just like in the sixth season right now. And it's pretty much just week after week of something. But then by the time spring rolls around, we have a really good gap usually where we're healthy again. And then, of course, summer when they're getting all their vitamin D. I feel like summer is the healthiest time of year for my kids. And it's probably because they're outdoors and, in the sun and getting the fresh air and all that. In winter, we're just cooped up. And now the Midwest, I don't know if many of you have heard, but the Midwest is supposed to be getting a super big snowstorm this week. So brace yourselves. In a few hours, it's supposed to start here. And according to the weather, we're supposed to get 7 to 12 inches. I don't know how accurate that will be. I feel like everything's the apocalypse with the Weather Channel, and it's usually a lot less than what they say. So I'm hoping it'll be a little bit less, but we'll be cooped up from the time it starts snowing, probably for the next 24 hours. So that is the winter life with us, but that's all right. It is what it is, and it's building their immunities, right? So, let's talk about finding a good spouse. Now, a lot of these things, like I said, it's a lot easier if you're a man and you're the one pursuing. Now, with my boys, I think the number one best place to find someone is in the church that you're in. Obviously, if you are around a lot of like-minded believers and, there's single people, it's good to find each other in the same church that you're going to. But a lot of times that's not feasible. Like, I know in our church, which is smaller, we have a lot of younger kids, but we never have had a lot of kids my kids' age. Here and there, we've had a few teenagers, but never really like a big youth group or a lot of other single young adults. So for my boys, I had to get a little creative. And my oldest, he actually played the Baptist game. He went to a year of Bible college. Now, the girl that he ended up marrying, Jenna, she was not from that college, but she was the sister of a guy that went to the college, and that's how they met. So they did meet through college avenues. And we were fine with that. We told him we didn't think he would like come out in a master in doctrine or something. We're not big on colleges really teaching a lot of doctrine, but we're like, there's a lot of good girls there. So he is like, I'm going to go, I'm going to play the game. So he went for a year and it ended up working out great for him. Him and Jen are very happy. I really feel like God did bring them together the way everything worked out. So just the fact too that she didn't even go there, but yet they ended up getting together. So he did have to get a little creative because there's no one here at the church his age. Um, Another thing that we've always done is we've always been around other Baptist churches. So here in Illinois, there's quite a few good IFB churches. Are we the same 100% on doctrine? No, but you're not going to find that anywhere you go. No one's ever going to be 100% on doctrine. And as long as salvation is correct and the fundamentals, King James, soul winning, right gospel, we're fine with that. Eschatology takes a back seat. Different thing on like different beliefs on who the chosen people are, things like that take a back seat. It's not a big deal to us. Here comes my coughing. It's because I'm talking. When I talk, it irritates my throat. So for us, we try to go to meetings and we go to camps throughout the year and we go to retreats throughout the year. I know Tommy did go to a singles retreat at a camp nearby, a Baptist camp nearby. So there's different places that you can look. Obviously, you want to look in the right places. If you're a guy, you don't want to go looking at the bars because you're probably going to end up with a single mom divorced or, a partier, or you get the type of girl in the environment that you're looking for. So for us, the environment that we've always had our kids look and we've always kept an eye out was other IFB environments, obviously. So hello, Celine. So with us, our kids have always looked in IFB circles. That's just where they're going to look. When you're trying to find a spouse, one way that we've raised our kids to is at the beginning of every relationship, we've treated it. We want them to treat it like it has the potential for marriage. We don't believe in casual dating. We don't believe in stringing someone along, playing games with them. So from the beginning, it's never been with us. We've never taught the whole explore your options type philosophy. I don't like that. I feel as if that's setting people up for the divorce culture later on where, there's, let me just say it, there's always going to be someone prettier out there. There's always going to be someone more handsome out there. There's always going to be someone more talented. So when you teach your kids that they need to explore other options and keep their options open, when they're talking to someone else, that's setting them up for even after marriage, exploring other options, or someone prettier comes along and suddenly their spouse doesn't seem as interesting to them. Someone more talented comes along and suddenly their spouse doesn't seem as interesting to them. So I think that's a bad mindset. So with our kids, we've always trained them that anytime they enter into talking to someone of the opposite sex, that they're keeping their eyes focused on possibly marriage. So I don't like this casual dating thing, dumping this person, going for this one, dumping this person, going for this one, different things like that. I do think that you need to have common interests with whoever you are going for, because friendship at the core is going to be what sustains you through the hard times, and just having those common interests and things. So every marriage is going to go through dry times and dry spells and times that you need to work harder at the relationship, and then other times it's going to seem really easy and you're going to be like, oh man, I have a handle on this, until the next week comes, right? And life throws you another curveball. So definitely have those common interests. I do believe friendship at the foundation is always good. I see a lot of relationships that start out where it's almost like this Hollywood type thing where they like madly fall in love, right? And you're the one for me. And then they madly fall in love, but they don't have common interests. They don't really have friendship as the core. And then they end up getting into this very quickly, entering into marriage. And after the honeymoon stage wears off, 2, 3 months later, they're like, what have I done? Like, I don't have anything in common with this person at all. We don't have any of the same interests. We don't like any of the same things. Their personality is so different than mine. And then from that point on, it takes a lot of work and a lot of building. I do think it's possible to, you know, that is possible to be done that way. I'm sorry, guys. I think I'm going to be coughing this whole time and sniffing. I'm sorry if that's really annoying. Talk about ASMR or whatever that is. Not the good ASMR. Yes, I don't understand it, Shaysa, either. She said, I never understood why people want to waste their time and risk major heartbreak with people who will never be there forever and always. Exactly. And so I've never even, with my kids, I've always told them before you enter in this relationship, this needs to be someone who physically, their personality, their common interests, like this needs to be the type of person that you could see spending your life with, basically. So, yes. And Nicole, anyone that you marry will have challenges for sure. Marriage takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of fine tuning and, you know, it takes a lot of effort. So, what should be your goals in finding a spouse? I want to say the end goal is not about finding your identity in another person or finding your happiness. I've always told my girls, you need to be happy and have security in who you are before a guy even comes along. Like, you need to know that your identity lies in Jesus Christ, not in another person. So I think when I got married at the young age of 20, I just had it in my head that I was going to complete my husband and he was going to complete me. And that was going to be the end all to end all. But it's not. You have to you find out very quickly as a newlywed bride that this man is not going to fulfill my every dream and desire. This marriage thing takes work and it's two sinful people living under the same roof and having to put the other person's needs ahead of their own. And, it's not about me just finding who I am in my husband. No. So you find out very, very, very early that that's not what marriage is. And that shouldn't be your end goal. I truly believe that marriage is to perfect you as a person. No one knows you like your spouse. No one knows you like your children, and they should be able to help you grow and mature. And, I think a goal of finding a spouse is to serve God together, to build this team unit where you can serve God in your church, in your home, in your personal life. Two are truly better than one, especially if you're united in your common goal. I hear people in the background, sorry. And once you start having kids, 5 are better than 1, and 7 are better than 1, and 8 are better than 1. So I think that marriage exists, first of all, to bring glory to God in your life, to bring children into the world, to glorify God, to continue on in this, to reach others. Um, Life won't be as lonely. Adam was lonely in the garden. And God brought to him a helpmeet. God saw the purpose. God saw that marriage was necessary. God saw that Adam needed someone. So he made Eve. And I do believe that we are our husband's helpmeet and that our husbands aren't quite the same without us by their side. So, but you always have to keep it in your mind that where marriage can be a very beautiful thing, marriage can also destroy lives when it ends in divorce. So we've also tried to raise our kids with those vows are so important. And once you say, I do, that's it. You figure it out. You figure out how to work through your problems. There's no getting out of this. You have, especially when you start bringing children into the mix, you have the potential to really hurt their lives or help their lives and help them become very, functional people of society that are healthy, that aren't toxic, that have healthy relationships. But yes, I would definitely say as a young girl, You're looking at marriage with stars in your eyes and you're thinking, this is going to make me happy. This is going to completely complete me. This is going to be where I find my identity. No. You need to get busy and you need to blossom into the woman that God wants you to be. You need to find your identity in Jesus Christ. Realize that he loves you and he's looking out for you and he cares for you. And serve him. Get busy in your local church. Get busy helping out families. I know with Abby, we try to keep her very busy. She's been graduated for over a year now. So we like our girls to have skills. So for her, she's very musical. And her, my piano academy keeps on growing and growing and growing. And hers is an extension of mine. And hers is growing and growing. And she really enjoys teaching. So that keeps her really busy. She's busy around the church. She's constantly cleaning. Anyone can attest to that comes here. She's constantly cleaning, doing things around the church. She plans all the baby showers. She plans with Morgan the Christmas Eve thing, or not Christmas Eve thing, the Christmas party that we do every year. She puts a lot of time and effort into all of that and is very busy around here. And she's not the type of girl that is desperate to have a man fulfill her needs and, just fill in that void that's in her. And I know part of it, and this is how I want all my girls to be, but I know part of it's being raised by me because, I'm not a frou-frou type of girl, if that makes sense. When it comes to, I'm pretty self-sufficient and independent in some ways. And I had to learn early on being married to a pastor, and maybe this is why he's busy every day of the week. So if I just waited on him to fulfill my every fantasy and my every whim and my every wish, I would be a very depressed woman indeed, because, and I would put a lot of expectations on him that he really doesn't need. My job is to be his helpmeet. It's not to be a drain. And so I do I keep the house running, and I keep the kids homeschooled. I keep meals on the table. I guide the house because I don't even do all that. My kids pitch in and help with everything. But I don't sit around texting him, demanding things of him constantly because um, I don't feel as wives we should be a drain on our husbands. We have needs and we should be able to communicate those needs to our husband. And I do. I have needs. And sometimes I'll just tell him. I'm not one of these like vague, mysterious women either. You're going to know what I'm thinking. You're going to know what I want. So a lot of times when I feel a little neglected, maybe he's been super busy, I'll just tell him, we need to go out tonight. And he says, okay. And we go out. I know when you have younger kids, it's a little bit harder. You might have to put a little more effort forward. I know when we had younger kids, there were a couple times I would get his parents. I would call up his mom and say, listen, we really need to go on a date. Can you please watch the kids? And she would say, yeah. So she'd watch the kids and we go on a date. So I would have to kind of make that happen. But I didn't sit around twiddling my thumbs, not telling him what I wanted and expect him to figure it out. That I think that's really mean to do to our husbands. I know for me, the best thing that's worked is just opening my mouth and talking and telling him. I don't know why that's such a weird concept, but that's what's worked for us. So they do, Nicole. And many women do put their men on a pedestal without even knowing it. And I feel like it's this like knight in shining armor facade. But all of us are flawed people at the end of the day. There is no perfect princess and there is no perfect knight in shining armor. And I think if we go into marriage realizing that this person is not here to fulfill my every need, but this person is here because number one, we're together at the end of the day. And that's what I love about, like we're busy every day. We're busy here, there, going everywhere. But at the end of the day, we connect, right? We're sleeping in the same bed. We're there with each other every single night. And he's my person. Like he's just there for me and I'm there for him. And it's that stability and just knowing that he's my person and I'm his person. And we don't have to be joined at the hip every minute of the day for that to happen. So that's just unrealistic. And if I expected that as a wife, then that would be very draining to him. Yes, exactly, Sarah. Sarah said, those are the days I text Abby and get a date planned. Oh, well, that's nice, Ron, that you think that she's a perfect princess. I'm glad you're saying that, but I'm not a perfect princess. So, and I know it. I'll be the first one to admit it. So, anyways, I maybe after coffee, yeah. I need my coffee to become more on the path to being a perfect princess, that's for sure. I don't even know why I went off on that tangent, but I went off on that tangent. Anyways, let's talk about what what is the path to getting a wife? And this is mainly for you single people out there, okay? This is what my husband and I did, and this is what we are doing. We have done with my son that's gotten married, with my other couple adult kids that are in relationships. This is what we've done. Okay, number one, accountability. So we are not the type of parents. Okay, so this is all about balance, right? Because I think you have two ends of the spectrum. You have the parents that are so ultra involved that their kids have no choice in the matter. Like it's pretty much an arranged marriage, right? And like, that's significant other has to like cross off every single box of the parents' checklist, not their checklist, the parents' checklist. We're not like that. But then we're also not the type that just throw our kids out to the wolves as far as just throwing them into the path of temptation, not having any boundaries in place, not having any checks and balances in place. My daughter's in here. Sorry. What are you getting? Get the new one. And okay. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Abby's interrupting it. Did you get the right one? Okay. She's getting ready to go somewhere. I just hope she doesn't get stuck in the snowstorm on the way back. Drive safe. I love you. All right. Sorry about that little interruption. That's real life right there. But yeah, this is what we've not been too far to the one end of the spectrum where no one's ever good enough for our kid. And like we have to approve of absolutely everything. We leave a lot of freedom in our kids' hands when it comes to choosing their significant other because we're not going to be the ones married to them. They are. So they have to be compatible with them. They have to be attracted to them. They have to be okay with their personality, and they're smart. I didn't raise stupid kids. So they should be able to, whereas I do like to know what's going on. I like to be told things about the relationship. I am very involved in that aspect. I also leave a lot of responsibility up to them because I raised them to think. I raised them with certain expectations and future spouses there. And so I just pray, and this is where prayer comes in a lot. Because as our children get to be adults, you can't micromanage everything that they do. They're adults. I mean, I've got an almost 22-year-old who's totally gone now, an almost 21-year-old who's in the process of going that way, getting on his own 2 feet. And then I've got a 19-year-old, and they're all in different types of relationships right now. So you have to let them adult, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But we do keep accountability in place. We do believe in chaperone dating. That's how we do things. That's how my husband and I did it. That's how we do things with our kids. Someone in the family is always around. They don't go on dates by themselves. They're not alone by themselves because they are dealing with hormones and temptation just like you would if you were in a room with someone. Think of it this way, being married, and I understand, my other two in relationships aren't married right now, but being married, I would not be spending time alone with a man that's not my husband. So I'm not going to allow my children to do that too, because there's always that room for temptation there. My goal is that all of my kids marry pure. And, so far we're on the road to that, but remaining pure until marriage is a big one in our home. Having expectations in someone who might become a spouse. Okay. So I've always told my kids, and this is how I felt growing up. If I've kept myself pure until marriage, I want someone who's also kept themselves pure until marriage. You might have a different view on that. And if you do, that's totally fine. And that's your standard. But for me and my kids, I've kind of raised them with the standard of you're waiting. So you should go for someone who is also waited. because I do believe that that is a good, I don't believe in toxic purity culture. I believe purity is a good thing. And I believe it's good to teach your kids that, and that the Bible's still true, and the sexual relationship is reserved for marriage only. And then once you get married, it's reserved only with that person in that marriage. No one else comes into that picture. So I've raised my kids with expectations and who might become a spouse. Going through the proper authority channels. Now for us, with my boys, that is included talking to the girl's dad and also sometimes talking to the girl's pastor. In different Baptist circles, it's different. It depends. But we've taught our boys that when it comes to the girls, their dad is the authority figure that you go through. And if the dad is not there, then whatever authority figure is over that girl. My throat is struggling, you guys. So we've taught them to go through the proper authority channels. And I truly believe that you should. If you have to sneak around, if you have to do things, that your parents would be against, or even your pastor preaches against, which would include overnight trips, going on long road trips by yourself with this person. If you have to sneak around and do that, then that's probably not the right relationship. And you're probably not going through the proper authority channels when it comes to that. So, sorry, I'm looking. Hey, Ashley. Hey, Rita. Yes. And, I feel like some people try to play off like, if you're not pure, it's not a big deal. But I do think that in the back of everyone's head, who is with someone that's had multiple partners, it's always kind of there and causing a little bit of resentment, whether or not they want to admit it. And just through all my encounters with people in my ministry life, I've seen that is a common factor. It's very hard to get over. So I know with my husband and I, we've had zero baggage when it comes to past partners. We learned everything together, and I truly believe that's the best way to live life. And so I'm trying to raise my kids in a way that they want that. And, so far, my one that's married tells me, mom and dad, every day he thinks we're a little bit smarter. So, and he appreciates the way that we raised him every day a little bit more. So I'm hoping that for all of my kids. But definitely honor God in your relationship. And that includes texting, being with each other, whether that's not being alone with each other, inappropriate things that you might send, Snapchat. I don't even like Snapchat, but I know a lot of kids have it. You have to be really careful with that. So I've tried to tell my kids, and they've seen through different instances in their life of examples of this. You don't ever text something to someone you don't want the whole world to see, because it has that potential. One wrong text can ruin your testimony. One wrong picture can ruin your testimony forever. So that is definitely something we need to be hammering through our kids' minds and hearts, especially in 2024. So, and then, having a God honoring wedding, we really strive for this too. And there's a few different things with this dress. We should be dressed differently in the world. We should be, have modest dresses. I have not had an issue with any of my girls being in weddings where they didn't have modest dress. So I'm thankful for that, because most of their friends are Baptist and different things. But I believe we should honor God in everything we do, and that includes our children's weddings. So the music in the wedding, it needs to be good, godly music. And then, of course, staying pure until marriage. And then during the ceremony, bringing the glory and focus on Him during the ceremony and even after the ceremony. I know I've been to a lot of weddings where the pastor will give a short little gospel presentation right at the end. And I think that's really important, because it just brings all the glory back to God and what, the couple is striving for. So if you haven't seen Tommy and Jenna's wedding, it was such a great wedding. And I know I'm biased, but you could just feel like the good spirit throughout the whole wedding. And that's on First Baptist Church of Clinton, their YouTube channel. If you look up First Baptist Church of Clinton, Illinois, not Iowa, First Baptist Church of Clinton, Illinois. It's Tommy and Jenna's weddings down there somewhere. So you can watch that whole ceremony. But it was very Christ-centered. And even that, Jenna had the right priorities. She was not a bridezilla. She was just happy she was getting married. So it was like literally drama-free wedding, fuss-free wedding. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful wedding. So I want all of my kids' weddings to be like that, where we bring glory to God throughout the ceremony, after the ceremony. Now, with the vows that you take, and this is something I strive to teach my children, it's for keeps, and you have to work through problems. Divorce has never been uttered in our marriage. We know we have to work through them. We're stuck with each other, right? One thing that I think is a thief of joy is comparison. As wives, we have to be really careful not to compare our men to other men. And that's why I throw the disclaimer out there too. Men, I feel like, are pretty uncomplicated. We're the ones that are crazy, right? With our hormones and everything. Now, different men, I will say this, I will throw this out there. Men that have been raised in a less than stable home can bring some of these issues into marriage, and they might be a little, it might be a little bit more difficult to work through some of their issues, but I don't think any man is a lost cause. And I do think you can work through issues. You can have victory over it, especially if you have good counseling and accountability in place. I do think that you can work through those. Yes. I don't think anyone understands the depth of the vow until we live it, right? But it's for keeps, and you have to work through problems. Don't compare men to other men. My man has weaknesses that yours doesn't. My man has strengths that yours doesn't. Everyone looks at my marriage, my life, and just is like, it must be nice being so lucky. Luck has nothing to do with it. Luck has nothing to do with it. Okay. There are things that comes with being married to someone in the ministry that other people, until they go through it, would not understand. There are strengths that you have to have that other women couldn't handle. Okay. There are things that come with being married to someone who's got a platform and who has a lot of hate directed his way. There's things that come with that a lot of women with less thick skin than I could not handle. There are things that you have to overlook, such as slurs towards me. Just today, my husband on his Twitter had some nasty person say something about me. You have to have thick skin. You just have to kind of be like, oh my goodness, they're a vile, vile person, and move on, and you can't dwell on it. But someone with not as thick of skin as me might have really taken that to heart and might have been really offended by that. So, there's things being married to my husband that other women couldn't deal with. And you know what? Being married to your husband, there's things maybe I couldn't deal with as well as you do. So we all have little things that we have to work through. We all have battles. We all have different husbands. We're not married to the same person. So whereas I think men generally are a lot more stable than us crazy women with our hormones and postpartum and all these crazy things going on, there are going to be issues in every man's life that you've got to work through. The way he was raised was completely different than the way you were raised. So it's not good to compare men to other men, compare marriages. Don't compare my marriage to your marriage. You make your marriage beautiful. Don't look at my marriage and be like, oh, I want the big virtuous marriage. Because like I said, there's things that maybe you wouldn't like in it. So there's things I probably wouldn't like in yours. Good things take time and effort, and good things take a long time. You're not just going to have this amazing, wonderful marriage after 1 year. I feel like marriage is like cheese. It gets better and better with age. And sometimes I like marriage so much better now at almost 23 years than I did 1 year into marriage. I feel like the first 5 years are very tumultuous in the fact that you're trying to figure each other out, and you're trying to figure out different weeks of the cycle, right? And also the first 5 years tend to be thrown into a lot, like pregnancy, having kids, your first postpartum, having young kids, that takes a toll on you. So just remember that good things take time. From the start, try to keep God as your head of the home. So what do I mean when I say that? Um, it's always good to have the important things be important. Church is number one. I can't stress getting into a good church. If you're not in a good church, find one. You have to find one. Be in church week in, week out. You raise your kids in um, that environment. That's going to give them stability. Also, going to church is a type of accountability to others. It's easy to just get off on our own island and have zero accountability, not put ourselves under the authority of anyone. When you come into a church setting, you are adhering to the church's, bylaws and constitution. You're agreeing with that. So in a way, you're putting yourself under the authority of that church when you're a member there. And I think a lot of people are just so against any type of authority at all that they don't even want to be in a church and be subject to that. And I think that's a mistake. I think that's going to hurt your family overall. So get into a good church. Keep God as the head of the home. Wives, we need to be careful not to take the spiritual leadership, though, when it comes to just determining, like, you are going to do devotions with me and you are going to pray with me. I think that's something that would be nice to do. But as wives, we have to recognize our husband for the spiritual leader. And I think it's better to lead by example rather than hammering it in his head, like, we are doing devotions together. And if you don't, and just becoming a royal nag over it, that's not going to help anything. So you read your Bible in front of him. You pray in front of him, not like, oh Lord, being all sanctimonious and loud about it like they did in the temple, right? No, I'm talking about just you have a prayer life. You read your Bible. And maybe God will use that to convict your husband. Maybe he'll say, you know what? Let's have Bible time. If your husband doesn't want to lead Bible time with your kids, then you do it. I see so many wives getting strung up on this idea that it has to be the way that they picture it. And their husband has to be the one leading it up. Well, if he doesn't take the initiative, then you can as the mom. You can every morning before school, read the Bible with your kids, pray with your kids. Don't nag your husband to death about it. So realize your role within the marriage. I believe in biblical roles of marriage here. I believe that the man is the head of the house and that he is the main breadwinner, that he makes the final decisions. Does that mean that he just stomps all over his wife and treats her like dirt and, screams at her all the time? And absolutely not. And I feel as if some men don't even know what true leadership is. Leadership is not putting a gun to your wife's head and yelling, submit, woman, and then telling her all the 50 reasons why she's a horrible wife. No, leadership is loving your wife and protecting your wife and guiding your wife and getting to the point where she trusts you with her entire life and that she would follow you to the ends of the world because she knows what a great man you are. That's true leadership. It's leading by example. It's loving your kids. It's not provoking your children unto wrath. And there's just sometimes with homes, there's so much war and there's so much turmoil going on that it causes, and a lot of it's by the men, just being overbearing. A lot of times it causes the kids to turn on their dad or their mom, sometimes even too, if the dad's going on about how awful the mom is. And the home is such a war zone. The kids just grow to hate their dad or they grow to hate their mom. And as soon as they're able to, they're out of that home. Who wants to be in a home like that? And they're doing everything that their parents said not to. Don't drink, don't get tattoos, don't fornicate, don't go to bars. And they're just like, I'm trying it all because they told me not to do these, but they had a horrible relationship and it was such a war zone at home. So that's the biggest, number one, the biggest piece of advice I would give to any parents. You cannot have a war zone for a home and expect to raise good kids. You just can't. It's not going to happen. So establish good communication from the start. Learn to talk things out. You should be able to talk things out like adults, calmly and rationally, without one of you freaking out and storming off, or punching a wall and storming off, or kicking a coffee table and storming off, or throwing something and storming off. At the end of the day, it's a sin problem. My husband preached a really good message called It's a Sin Problem yesterday. He had been planning for a couple weeks to preach it. Because there's so many diagnoses out there, right? They're like narcissistic personality disorder or something. Well, at the end of the day, it all comes down to sin, and it all comes down to pride, and it all comes down to anger. As adults, learn when things start getting heated to lower your voice and talk intentionally. Keep your words under control, because we can do the most damage with this little thing in our mouth right here. And I was a lot worse at this when I was younger. I tended to fly off the handle a lot more than I do now. Obviously, I would hope everyone's maturing as they get older. I'm learning to really, when I'm my most angry, I need to think the most about what I'm going to say because I have the potential to get really upset and then let my emotions take over. So, as adults, you should be able to learn, you should be able to fight fair. What do I mean when I say fight fair? You don't need to bring up past grievances. You don't need to yell. You don't need to throw things. You don't need to get physical. You don't need to use slurs. You don't need to use foul language. Learn to fight fair. When in doubt, sit on it and think and pray about it for a while. And then if you get to the point where you feel like everything is lost, I don't think I can live this way anymore, I'm developing ulcers because we're yelling at each other constantly, and my kids are constantly crying because we freaked out on each other again, you need to get counsel. You need to have accountability. And that all comes back to being in a local church. You need to be in a church where the pastor really loves and cares for you and will take the time to help you navigate your problems and will give you solutions and will tell you where to start. This is where you start. First of all, you need to be in church 3 times a week. You need to be here because you missed that message that I preached on the home 2 weeks ago that really would have helped you, and then you need to get accountability. You need to have someone that, is checking up on you. How's it going? You working on this issue? You working on this issue? And it's very humbling for someone else to know about our problems. I know, I understand that, but the opposite of humility is pride, and that's usually tends to be at the foundation of communication problems in marriage, anger problems in marriage. It's always pride at the core of it. So I've noticed when men get humbled, when women get humbled in a marriage, that's usually when you could start building up on the foundation of humility, not the foundation of pride. So some things take years to figure out, and all of us are growing and maturing. There's still even little things that me and my husband have to work out. And I would say that both of us are a lot better communicators than when we first got married. And both of us, we can tell each other what we think most of the time, without getting upset or angry. And I know both of us have really matured in that area. So, what are some perks of getting married young, though? I know a lot of people knock getting married young, but I think there's a lot of perks to it. I mean, I was 20 when I got married. I'm not talking like 16, 17, 18. Okay. That's a little young right there. And I want my kids to enjoy their childhood. Well, for us, we have a no dating rule until they're 18. That's through our own experience. And then through just some different things in life, we've decided hard rule, no dating until you're 18. One of the reasons for that is I want my kids to be able to enjoy being a kid without the pressure of all that relationship on them. So we do not encourage relationships at 12, 13, 14. That's almost exasperating. It is kind of exasperating. Exceptionally, that's the word. I knew it was an X word. That's exceptionally too young. They are going to have time for that responsibility and marriage and having a family. It's a burden. It's a good burden, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And they're going to have time for that when they're an adult. So when they're a kid, we want them to enjoy being a kid. You're only a kid for a few short years. So, and we have fun with our kids. Allie has this new thing with trampoline parks. She's so funny. We were in Arkansas. This is an Allieism. We were in Arkansas at my mom's for a few days over Christmas, and we came back and we were on the way back, and Allie's like, I bet Dad missed us. And she's like, I hope Dad missed us so much that he surprises us with trampoline park tickets. Like, what in the world? We just died laughing because we were like, where did that even come from? So if you want to know the way to Allie's heart, it's through trampoline park tickets. That's the way to her heart. But it's rather expensive for our whole family to go. So it's very rare that we go. It's over $100, I think, for all of us to go. So it's very rare that we go to the trampoline park, but that's apparently the way to Allie's heart. But we do fun things like that. You know, we go to the zoo and we go to the trampoline park. We've been blessed to go to Florida a few years in a row, and we have friends that will get season passes, and then our whole family gets to go as their guest for these season passes. So we've gone to 3 of the major theme parks there, and we have not even had to pay for them. So thank you to those friends that have provided that for us. But we like to do fun stuff like that with our kids. We don't need them to be texting Johnny. Oh, what is Johnny doing? What is Johnny? Oh, no. And then having a bad day because does Johnny not like me anymore? And then just having that take over their life. We want them to enjoy being a kid. So that's one of my soapboxes. I'm sorry. But there are perks to getting married 19, 20, 21. There are perks to getting married young. I was young when we got married. We were 20. The biggest thing is we grow up together. You know, you're not set in your ways. So you kind of grow in grace and wisdom together. You learn together. You're more adapt to change to fit each other, you know, and I always tell my girls, you know, don't go into marriage thinking you can change the man because he's pretty much who he is. His personality is set. His little quirks are set. His likes and dislikes are set. But I will say that, my husband has definitely matured in the last 23 years, and I hope every man does. I feel as if when guys are younger, there's a lot more pride involved, of course. And so they tend to take things very difficult. Like if you have an actual grievance that needs to be addressed in the marriage, they tend to be very insecure because they haven't been married very long. So they tend to be a little bit more insecure. The longer you're married, the more secure you get in the relationship and the more secure you get in your beliefs and, you know, who you are. And so you don't quite take as much offense the longer you've been married. But you get to grow up together. You know, you have more energy for the kids and the stress that they bring. I'm telling you, I'm 43 with a toddler and I'm so exhausted. It's not even funny. I had so much more energy in my 20s with toddlers than I do 20 years later. So if you want to have kids for a long period of years, like I have over 20 years, over 2 decades, just realize it's going to be a lot harder in your 40s than it is in your 20s. So when you get married young in your 20s, and let's say you have boom, 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 and you have all these kids, you have a lot more energy to take care of them than you do if you get married when you're older. So I definitely see, you know, the Bible says to enjoy the wife of your youth. So it smiles on young people getting married, right? And then it also says if it's better to marry than to burn. So basically, for guys, you know, you're more apt the longer you go without getting married, you're more apt to fall into fornication. So what's the solution for that? You find a wife and you get married. So it's a good thing. Sarah said, we were 21 and 24 when we were married. This month makes 5 years, and growing together is such a cool experience. It really is. And you can kind of see just how you both adapt. And, you know, it's one of those things where like the longer you've been married, I know what's going through my husband's head. Like, let's say we're in a social situation and someone's talking to him. I know what's going through his head without him even telling me. I just know, you know, you get to where you're one flesh, right? And you get to know where you just know each other so well. So, you don't have the baggage that sin can bring. Because like I said, a lot of times the longer you wait, the more apt you are going to be to fall into fornication, give away your purity. You know, when you get married young, you have responsibility now. And that's going to keep you out of a lot of trouble. You don't have time to go bar hopping. You don't have time to get involved in drugs. You don't have money to get involved in drugs. You know, my husband and I have never had alcohol. We've never had drugs, never been involved in any of that. And I think part of the reason is because we got married at 20 and we've been poor ever since. We could not afford that lifestyle. We really couldn't. We've been providing for kids. We had our first kid 9 months to the day after we got married. So we've been too poor, too broke, too busy raising our family to even get involved in any of that side stuff. So that's another thing. It keeps you out of trouble. You don't have the baggage that sin can bring, different things like that. So what if there is baggage? Let's say, okay, I think oftentimes I'm very naive and I realize I am. Okay. So forgive my naivety, however you say that, because this channel is ran by a woman. I married when I was 20. I've never drank. I've never smoked. I've never done drugs. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this to say I've lived a very innocent life. My husband is my one and only that I've ever been with. So sometimes I am shocked at the baggage that some people bring into the marriage relationship. I shouldn't be, but I am. And I've pretty much heard every story. We've counseled a lot of people. So I've realized that my life is not the norm. Okay. And I'm realizing that more and more. Now, I'm not going to say that that doesn't exist, because I'm not like these MGTOW guys either that say that all women are terrible. There's no pure women out there, because I was, and I'm raising my kids to be that way. And they are with people that are that way. So that's false in the assumption that there aren't any out there. And that's why you have to look in the right spot to find one. That's why you look at the Baptist churches. And, if you're a Baptist and you want to stay Baptist, it's good to marry a Baptist. If you're pure and you want to marry someone that's pure, it's good to look for someone that's been raised in that environment where purity is taught. Okay. So I'm not saying that it's not out there, but I do understand I'm not the norm, and I'm seeing that more and more the longer I do my show. So what do you do if there is baggage? And I say this from a point of not having experienced it, but having counseled others who have experienced it. Realize that it will be a fight, but it can be glorious if you work through it. Okay. It's very easy. It's so much easier to just call it quits. It's so much easier. But think of all that's on the line. I am still convinced it's harder to be a single mom raising a bunch of kids who only see their dad every other weekend than it is to work through your problems with your current spouse. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of late nights, but it's still better to work through the issues with the spouse that you have rather than severing that family unit to where now the kids only have one parent at a time. And, it affects everything. The money situation, whether or not the kids see their parents all the time, the unity, it affects so much. So I still think it's better to work through the issues. So realize it's going to be a fight. Hi, Esther. Realize it's going to be a fight, but it can be glorious if you work through the issues. Both spouses should be sensitive to the fact that there will be problems because there's baggage involved, right? If you bring baggage into the marriage, go into it with eyes wide open instead of half shut when going into marriage. And once again, this is easier said than done, because I think everyone to some extent thinks it's going to be one way, and it's not. And it's just a good old dose of reality when they learn that. So I'm doing great, Esther. Thank you. How are you? Get therapy if needed and counseling if needed. And once again, this all goes back to being in a local church. I can't stress that enough. In my experience, the ones that we have seen be victorious in this area are the ones that were plugged into a good church, because it offered accountability. It offered counseling. It offered, just the stability of having their kids in that environment. So the ones that I have seen that have made this work have gotten through issues, worked through the baggage. They've been under a good pastor. They've been under a good counselor, and they've been hearing the preaching, and they've been seeing the example set forth by other church members, and it provides encouragement and stability. And those are the ones that I have seen succeed when it comes to this. Don't allow grievances to build. This is a big one for me. Address them early. Like I said, I have the different personality, and where I don't let things fester. I pretty much tell you if there's an issue. So working through things is important to me. I don't like feeling angry at someone or having resentment be there. I just want to address it head on and then get over it, you know? So I'm the same way with my kids. I'm the same way with my husband. I don't like things to fester. I just like to work through them. So I would definitely say, don't allow the grievances to build. If you are just every offense that's happening, you're just bottling it all up inside. Eventually, it's going to erupt and it's going to come out. And we're probably going to sin when that happens. We're going to lose our temper. We're going to hit something. We're going to throw something. So it's better to address them when we're calm and when it happens rather than just let it build and build and build. But then that being said, don't be easily offendable. You know, it's okay to be sensitive in some things. And I've had to say before, listen, I'm allowed to feel this way about something. Okay. My feelings are not invalid just because you think it's silly. It's not silly to me. And I'll just point blank say that, you know, that it's not silly to me. This is what I'm feeling. And can you please just listen to me when I'm explaining this? So, and I think that just comes down to calmly and rationally telling our spouse how we feel from both sides, him being able to tell you how he feels and don't fly off the handle and get upset, you know, take it calmly and then working through it, talking through it. You should be adults about the situation. So what are some ways to be more sensitive to each other, to build that good foundation of not letting grievances build, you know, learning each other and the good communication and all that. So I'm going to say, guys, I'm not preaching at you right now, but one thing you need to do when it comes to your woman is you need to figure out the monthly cycle. I think you need to, oh, that's terrible, Sarah. Sarah said, or recording it. Please don't record. That's terrible. If I don't, okay, where to even begin with this? Yeah, just don't record each other. Don't record each other's. You do. Okay. Do you realize when you record something, people do that with their enemies. All right. People will do that with people they don't trust. They'll record them. They record people they don't trust, people that are their enemies, people that they hate. So if you are doing that in a marriage relationship, that is really bad. Your husband should not be your enemy. Your wife should not be your enemy. And you should never be recording things in order to use it to hurt them or to expose them or whatever weird thing. You shouldn't want to expose your spouse. Now, the only thing that might be different is if there's actual abuse involved. If there's actual abuse involved and you need it for like police, by all means, go ahead. But when your marriage has gotten to that point, there needs to be further steps taken. You need to get help. You need to get the authorities involved. You need to get to a safe place. If you're to the point where you need to record different situations that are happening between you, you probably don't even need to be living together in the same house. So I am an advocate for women who are in truly abusive situations to get help. And you know that I've said that often on this show. I don't believe in covering up abuse. I don't believe in putting up with physical abuse if it's going on in the home. So yeah, that's a whole different can of worms. But just remember, when people record each other, it's because they don't trust each other and because they're their enemies. So if you're just doing that because you had a little tiff, that's a little weird. But yeah, back to the whole ways to be more sensitive. Guys, figure out the monthly cycle. We women, we are susceptible. It's not our fault. I'm just going to say that. It's not totally our fault. Okay. We have different weeks of our cycle. And obviously you're going to need to be a little bit more patient with us on those off weeks. Yeah, just be a little bit more patient with us. Women, recognize times of stress in your husband's life and just chill. Don't be coming to him with the 50,000 problems in the house when he's been working 70 hours that week and he's exhausted and his car just broke down and his insurance bill is due. And then you're like, and this needs to be done. And you know, recognize the signs, have a little social awareness and just chillax. You know, there's a time and place for everything. That includes arguments, and they're probably going to come up, or times that you don't agree. There's a time and place for everything. In the middle of church is not one. In front of people is not one. Maybe not even in front of your kids. I think that your kids need to see you work through conflict But the house should not be a war zone all the time. And we already talked about that. That's the number one thing. Just, would you please have a happy home? Would you please have a stress-free home, please? The home has to be a place of rest and calm. This world is already crazy enough. It's already messed up enough. And you've got to have a peaceful home. You have to be what you are in church at home, because your kids and spouse know you, and they will know if you're putting on a fake front. They will know if you're being fake. They will spot the hypocrisy, and you should be exactly what you are at church in the home. Okay. Remember that the woman is the weaker vessel. So forgive her when she messes up, and don't hold things over her head for years and years and years. And this goes with both spouses. I've seen women do it with their husbands, and I've seen husbands do it with their wives, where they messed up years and years and years before, whether that's with money or even as far as infidelity or some indiscretion like that. They will never let them forget it. Never. Like, it's just, they can't even move forward in the relationship and find that peace, that place of peace and non-conflict, because they're so focused on that. So you would need to forgive her when she messes up. That's why the Bible says not to be bitter at your wives, because maybe men have the potential to be this way. I don't know. People always joke about how like women never let their husband forget, but I think the same can be true for husbands and their wives too. You need to come to a place where you're able to forgive her and then move on and not ever bring it up again. And same thing with wives. You need to come to a place where you're able to forgive him and then forget about it and never bring it up again. But just remember that the woman being the weaker vessel, I think this pertains to hormones and emotions as well. We are weaker emotionally than you. We're not as solid when it comes to just having no hormonal fluctuations. So you need to take that into consideration when dealing with us. All right, just a little bit of grace here, a little bit of love would go a long way. And then my last tip, obviously, is just get into a good church and have stability. I'm amazed at all the people that want to raise good kids and want to have a good home life and want to have a good marriage, yet they're forsaking the assembling of themselves together all the time. I know it's hard, especially when you hear stories of abuse that happens, but that doesn't keep people from enrolling their kids in sports or even sending their kids to a public school. There's bad apples everywhere. And that's why I would say when it comes to church, you just be there with your kids. Don't send them off to children's church if you don't want to. Don't put them in the nursery if you don't want to. Find yourself a good family-friendly church and just get involved and put yourself under. I think the biggest thing with people not wanting a church is they don't want to be under the authority of another, what is it? Not entity, not facility. Establishment? There we go. And it kind of is, you kind of are putting yourself under the authority of an establishment when you are a member of a local New Testament church, because you've agreed that, yeah, I agree with these bylaws and these, the Constitution and things. And they'll have things in there like, at Liberty Baptist Church, we don't believe in alcohol and drinking, consuming alcohol. We don't believe in fornication. We don't believe in, and it's a list of things like that, basically what the Bible lists as what should not be once named among you. So because of that, they don't like to have accountability. They kind of just want to do their own thing. And at the end of the day, it's number one, a pride issue. And it's number two, an authority issue. They don't want to be under anyone else's authority. Well, the fact of the matter is we're always going to be under someone else's authority. And the best example for you as a husband to show your wife how to submit to your authority is by you submitting to authorities in your life as well. And that could be as, not breaking the law, submitting to the law of the land as far as speed limits and police and, not doing drugs and not doing things illegally. And it could be submitting to God by doing what his word said. The Bible says to love your wives, And so part of loving your wife is being a good example, being a good leader. And then she is going to be more apt to follow your leadership if she sees you following the leadership that God has put into your life. So that would be what I would finish with. And I hope this has been a help. If you are young and single and you are looking for someone, I understand the struggle. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. It can be pretty scary. I mean, my kids are getting older and starting to find significant others. And it's a lot. It's a lot, but I'm trying to raise them for marriage. They all know and see that marriage is a very good thing. And I'm glad I've put that into their hearts because I think marriage is a good thing. My husband thinks marriage is a good thing. You know, we have the marriage that we want our kids to have. And so because of that, they are very interested in getting married. They don't want to walk away from it all because they've seen that our life is happy and that we've had a happy home and we've been happy together. But it has not come by accident, and it has not come because we were just lucky. You know, we've both had goals of our marriage getting better and better as the years went on, and we've worked at that. We've actively worked at that. And we've also put guidelines and boundaries in our life to ensure that the trust would never be broken and the trust would grow through the years rather than be broken. And that would be, you know, boundaries with the opposite sex, boundaries as far as things we would have in our life, things we would not have in our life, things we would keep out of our life. And we've stuck to that. So it's very intentional. Having a good marriage is very intentional. And you can get to that point if you haven't been intentional about it up till now, but you will have to be intentional about it. And hopefully some of those points that I gave you will help, but it all comes down to providing stability for your children and providing stability in your home. So people who tend to move around a lot and jump around a lot to church to church to church, they're not providing a stable home for their children. So you need to get into a good church. You need to get planted. You need to get involved. You need to be under the leadership of the pastor, under the leadership of the church. You need to edify and be around other like-minded believers. And you need to have a peaceful home. So you do those things and your kids are most likely going to be raised as happy, well-adjusted, balanced people. So that's our goal, right? We want to raise those kids that are happy and well-balanced, adjusted, and who want to glorify God with their lives. That's our goal. So yes, thank you, KJV. Thank you, Beth. Please remember to click like on this video. Definitely share it if it's been a help. I used to think the saying was a doggy dog world. It probably is. I get sayings mixed up all the time. I was just asking my husband, you know, on Willy Wonka, how he says something and then he's like, scratch that, reverse it. That's how I am with a lot of my phrases because I get them all mixed up. My mouth works faster than my brain does. So that's why I'm better at writing, because I can think about it and then write it all out correctly. Whereas I'm constantly tripping over my words because I'm trying to get the thought out. And yeah. So anyways, that's me. I hope you all have a great week. If you have any guests that you want to see, I need to reach out to Jane Kane again. I had asked her a few months ago in the summer if she would come on, and actually her husband went through a period of time where he was really sick and things got a little scary for them. But I wanted to talk to her just about the faithfulness of her, because she was incredibly faithful. She went on she literally had to start going, she had to start driving the work vehicle, and she was with him every minute of the day because he would just have seizures and different things like that. So I wanted to get her on to talk just about their journey through that. He's a little better now. She doesn't have to go with him all the time now on his work jobs, but I want to get her on to just talk about being faithful through the sick times, you know, and just everything that entailed. So I need to reach out to her. I'll let you guys know if I will be having her on again here soon, but hoping to get another guest on soon. I just not have taken the time because we've had sickness and things have been crazy and, you know, life. So anyways, I hope you all have a good week and we will see you ladies next week.